All right, I'm back with Beds for our NBA preview pod, our annual NBA preview pod at this point because it's our second one. I'm fired up for the season. Are you fired up?
Stupid fired up, man. It's going to be some fun basketball. A lot of different looks this year. You're fired up, obviously.
I love basketball season, man. I love like the build up to basketball season too because basketball. I mean, every sport has like the guys moving around from team to team, but like I think in basketball it's different. It's a little bit like a soap opera, reality show kind of thing. Like, where's Dame going to end up this year? Who are the Celtics going to add this year? Like, there's all that moving around, and then it kind of all kicks in when the season starts, like how it all plays out. So I am fired up to see how it all works out that way.
Some of the stuff that's interesting to me too is like I love the team building side of it, and I follow the numbers and the salary cap stuff. The NBA moves some needles on like these salary cap floors, and especially with the Celtics right now, getting Kristaps and getting Drew Holiday. From every pod that I've listened to, an article that I've read, it's now or never the next 2 years because they're going to be in cap hell. So I don't know what it looks like after the next 2 years, but I'm excited right now for the Boston Celtics. Yeah,
totally. They still got to get, and we'll jump into the Celtics in a sec, but they got to get Tatum paid at some point. Do you see Giannis's extension the other day? I think it was 3 years, $182 million.
Yeah, it's so crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, money in basketball is insane. It really is.
Well, I wonder if like your Mike and your Larry, like Magic's done well with business and stuff. Mike's done well, but maybe Larry a little bit. He's like, man, these guys are getting paid $60 million and they do what compared to what I used to do? But the money's insane.
Even you got a guy like Pritchard or something on the Celtics, like the guy's getting paid more than Larry probably made in his career in like 1 year. So you have guys that are 6th, 7th, 8th guys on teams that are making significant money. But I guess that's just the NBA. Just is what it is.
Larry Bird, his last contract, which he did not fulfill, was for $7 million a year. And I can't remember. I think it was like 2 years or 3 years. And he never got paid for it because he ended up retiring. So,
yeah. And he didn't have a very long career, right? What do you have, like 9, 10 playing seasons?
Actually, I think it's like 9 and change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if his 2 best years of his contract, which he didn't even fulfill, was $7 million a year, it's like those early ones were probably like $500K, and probably made a few bucks here and there. But the money these guys are making now is insane. So,
real quick on that, Bird's first contract was like 3 years, $1 million total, which was the largest contract in history in 80. And then Magic signed some stupid one for like 25 years, 25 million. That they realized like a couple years into it, like, what the hell are we doing? And they ripped that up. Yeah.
The league's changed so much since then. So I'm fired up for it, man. So here's what we're going to do. We talked a little bit about this offline, but I think we're going to focus on the East and the West, some of the things that we're excited about in each conference, maybe talk about some winners, maybe at the end, make some predictions, talk about some bets, some MVP bets, things like that, and have some fun with it. It's always fun talking basketball, man. I can talk about this stuff all day long. So why don't we just jump into it, focusing on the East. What are you most excited about in the East? And you tell me.
So did Milwaukee get better is like what I've been asking myself, because it's obvious to me that the Celtics got better. Did Milwaukee technically get better extracting Drew? They don't really have a third guy. I mean, they have
Middleton.
Yeah, and he's been injured, and he kind of played a little bit last year. He's building himself back up, but like, who's their third guy? Who's going to play defense? I mean, they have
Brook Lopez still, Bobby Portis. Those guys are good. Do I think they got better? I do. Dame's really good. Dame's also getting old, but he's a top 75 NBA player. He's a guy that can shoot the hell out of the ball.
Jesus.
So, I mean, when you add a guy like him, I think, even though you're losing Drew's defense, they probably got a little bit better. Yeah, I don't know. Where do you land on it when you consider all those things?
So I always worry that he just completely steamrolls us. Like he's that type of alien unicorn player where it's like you can put 4 guys with him and it's just he's so dominant. You worry about how we're going to cover him. Al's getting up there in age. We got Kristaps. We got rid of Rob. So it's like Kristaps maybe plays 60 games this year. That's my prediction on him, by the way. I want it to be 82 plus the playoffs. It's not going to happen. I don't know, man. I think we have enough firepower now to work around the fact that I don't know who's going to stop him. I just hope he gets tired. But like that's one narrative I have in the East. I don't think Miami got better.
we'll get back to Miami. Just closing the loop on Milwaukee. I definitely feel like it's us and or when I say us, the Celtics, us. We're basically part of the team at this point.
I mean,
It's us and the Bucks that are like head and shoulders 1 and 2, I think, in that conference. I think the numbers that people predict is the Bucks to win 54 games and the Celtics to win 55. So that could go either way. Predictions have us neck and neck. Do I think they got better? Yes, a little bit better. But then when you look at the Celts, and we'll get back to Miami, which I want to focus on the Celtics for a sec. Like, I think Celtics got a lot better. Like, I really do. Like, I think the Celtics got more better. Can I say, is that Celtics got more better than Milwaukee got better? Like, so I like where the Celtics are heading into the season. It actually reminds me, I was thinking about it today. It reminds me of the Kyrie, Gordon Hayward season. That lineup was stacked. And then they play Cleveland on night 1. Hayward snaps his leg, and it's just like all out the window. I'm that level of excited for the Celtics this year. And God, I hope we can make it through the first night without someone freaking snapping their leg and just ruining the whole thing.
Wow, I don't want to buzzsaw the podcast here, but I remember how that felt. And I remember thinking, why? Dude, why? We lost Reggie Lewis. Len Bias dies also. It's like Bird's back, McHale's ankle, Parrish's ankle, DJ's ankle. I could run back for 30 years and say, worst case scenario here, here, and here. That was awful. But, dude, does this feel, this Celtics team, the way it's built, some of the moves, it has '08 vibes for me. And, man, that's a big statement. So what needs to happen for that to be '08? They need to stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Kristaps has to stay healthy. I feel like that's the key. And honestly, when I say that out loud, that's like a huge if. That dude never stays healthy. He hasn't been healthy. So to think that he could seems like a long shot. But like if he does, man, I feel like Tatum and Brown are peak Tatum and Brown years right now. I don't even think we've peaked with them, but we're entering those peak years. We have a good run of them being some of the best basketball players in the world. So then you add a guy like Porzingis, and I love the Drew Holiday edition. He's probably a better defender than Marcus. I mean, Smart has the reputation as a defender, but Drew's probably a better defender at this point. And I think the Marcus Smart thing ran its course. As much as I love Marcus Smart, I think it had to happen. So when you add those pieces in and, what we gave up, I think it's a good thing.
I agree with all of that. Marcus Smart was such an interesting thing for me because he was the guy that you wanted to root for, but he had like 3 or 4 plays a game where it's like, you and I played basketball, we played pickup, and there was always that teammate on your team that would pass the ball late to you on a cut, and you'd be like, dude, I'm 33 years old out here running as hard as I can off this screen. Throw it in the pocket. Don't wait until I get through, right? Mm-hmm. Marcus Smart was that type of player to the Celtics. Jesus, I just went off right there, but I am so excited to not see that type of basketball anymore. Yeah. So that leaves you now. So I think White played better defense than Smart last year, number 1. Number 2, Marcus was running in like concrete all year. And to your point, I think Holiday, besides the fact that he's a really good defender, he kind of fixes something on offense now. We haven't had a point. You mentioned Kyrie. Kyrie's like a bad memory, but he was a really good point guard.
Yeah.
If we could get the ball out of Tatum and Brown's hands at the top of the key and give it to a guy like Drew, high screen and roll with Kristaps, who's already banging a bunch of threes. Tatum's butt's been in the post a little bit more. And if anybody listening to this remembers the great James Worthy, I would love to see Brown be more of a James Worthy type wing player and just beat people up and down the floor, hit his corner pocket 3-pointers, stop dribbling Jalen.
100%. Dude, it was so frustrating the end of last year in the playoffs. It always felt like Tatum and Brown had the ball at the top of the key, and they're just dribbling and trying to create something. Like, get the ball out of their hands and let them do something. Run some plays, run some screens, run those guys around, catch the ball and shoot. I love the way the team's constructed, dude. I have very high hopes for them. I look forward to Pritchard getting some minutes. He's kind of been lighting it up this preseason. He seems like he's going to have a little bit of an opportunity coming off the bench. And like you said, last thing about the Celtics, like, I didn't say White up front, but like White is a huge piece of this team. He's a great defender. Had some really clutch games in the playoffs. Like, we're lucky to have him as like our 4th or 5th guy. Never mind Horford coming off the bench now, who's just a great leader. Freaking love this team. I'm even more fired up now than I was before.
Yeah, I like the Pritchard take, and I mentioned him last year when we were talking about this. I don't know why this kid hasn't gotten any run. And then when he did get run last year and the year before, it was just like break glass because you need Pritchard to come in.
Yeah.
And the teams would immediately expose him defensively, and then it would rattle his confidence a little bit. Get that kid like 20, 25 minutes, shoot a bunch of threes, go on those like 3 or 4 threes in a row run, get the crowd fired up. I'm excited for that. I guess my last thing on the Celtics, we were talking about if Porzingis can stay healthy. One thing that, like, Marcus missed a lot of games. We got rid of Robert Williams. Robert Williams missed a lot of games. Like, I loved Robert Williams, by the way. I think it was tough to let him go. But if you're going to criticize the moves by the Celtics and bring up the point that Porzingis doesn't play a lot of games, he played as many games as Marcus did. He played more games than Robert Williams, minus the year that he had his redone. So I'm ready to watch this.
Yeah, so it's not like we're giving away some like Iron Men type players that play 80 games a season. So it's the same thing. So if it was equal to that, it's not really much of an issue. So we'll get back to the Celts. The third best team from a prediction point of view is the Knicks, and that's who the Celtics are opening the season with. By the time this podcast is posted, that game will be over. But I don't view the Knicks as a serious contender in the East for some reason. I don't know what it is. I just think my whole life the Knicks haven't been great. I mean, yes, they have Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, and those guys are good, but they're not great. I don't know what your thoughts are on the Knicks, or if you just even have any thoughts about them in general.
It's comparable to the IT run that he had with the Celtics. Mm-hmm. Those teams, Jonas Drebko, IT, you had Al on that first contract. It's like just a bunch of scrappers that play well together and are coached well. Like, Tibbs is a really good coach. Tibbs is going to take everything in that garden and make the best meal out of it. Mm. I don't know where the hell that just came from, by the way.
Dude, I freaking love it, man. I should write these all down and just save them. Save them for a rainy day. But you're right, and that's probably why they're a third place in the East predicted team ahead of the next team, which we'll get to, is the Sixers in a second. But that's probably a lot of coaching, and then some of those guys maturing. Brunson's a good player, man. Like, he's an all-star. So they have good players, but the Knicks are still going to be the Knicks. And if their over-under is at 45.5 games, I don't know. I'd probably take the over a little bit, but just not by much.
Yeah. So that's just above 500 ball.
But that's predicted to be the third best team in the East.
And see, a team like that, if Brunson rolls an ankle for a couple of weeks, or Randall twists a knee and he's out for 2 or 3 weeks, then you're looking at sub 500 ball. So everything needs to go right for that team to be in that 3 seed, I think, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, there's probably less margin for error for them. And again, they just have history working against them. Besides all that, if they broke through and got themselves on the same level as the Celtics or the Bucks, I would be very surprised. So we'll see. It'll be a fun opening night game. Celtics are playing in New York, so it'll be good. Madison Square Garden. Are you looking for a home loan? Well, you're in the right place. Besides hosting this podcast, I'm also a residential loan officer with Norcom Mortgage in Saco. If you're looking in Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, or Florida, I can help. To have a conversation about making your dream home a reality, contact me today. For more information, check out my website at www.randyforcier.norcommortgage.com. Now back to the interview. The next team is more interesting to me than the Knicks, and that's the 76ers. Like, what a soap opera of a team that is. I actually really like Embiid. He's obviously a good player. MVP last year. I think I called that. Pat myself on the back. No big deal. But like, you have something like Harden. That Harden dude, he's the worst, man. Obviously, Kyrie is head and shoulders above everyone as like the worst, but like, Harden's not far behind him. I think that guy sucks.
Listen, man, he is the hot chick in the room that you want to get with, but you do not want to marry.
Yeah.
Like, if you marry James Harden, you know that there's just going to be a 3-year run of a horrible marriage with an awful divorce.
Yeah. But you know what? He's not even the hot chick in the room anymore. Like, we're past that point with him. He had his MVP run and his 35 points a game run, but that's not him anymore. Yeah, I think he had one really good game against us in the playoffs where he scored maybe 40. I think we lost that game. Again, us being the Celtics. So he has that, but that's not like an every night James thing like it used to be. So he is so not worth the headache, but I don't know if they're going to trade him or not. Like, it seems like it has to happen at some point because he's not showing up to practices and he's kind of dicking him around. and no one knows if he's going to be there for the opening night game.
I heard he flew into Philadelphia today.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
To be at practice. Hey, James, thanks. Thanks for showing up, dude.
He's probably making $40 million.
So I heard somewhere that Embiid wants to get traded and he wants to go to New York. And I got to be honest with you. If I'm Embiid, I want to get away from these guys. Like, I've had it.
Totally. Embiid, a guy as good as he is and his size, he doesn't have like a Dame Lillard window or a LeBron window. He's just not built that way. He's going to break down faster than those guys will. His chances over the next few years. So Embiid's freaking awesome. Seems like a dude that cares, which is kind of a funny thing in professional sports. You know, everything's so money driven. Like, dude wants to win, man. He loses in the playoffs and he cries. That stuff doesn't happen with everybody. So I hope he has some success. Really don't hope it's with the Sixers. You know who I liked last year in the playoffs?
Who?
Was Maxey.
Yeah.
Maxey was a good player, man. I'll be interested to see how his role morphs into maybe being the number 2 over there instead of Harden. You know, guy to watch.
So Maxey, there was a point that was brought up. I can't remember where I read it. It was a Celtics take, though. So Sam Cassell is on the Celtics coaching staff. Yeah. Something to talk about with the Celtics. I won't deep dive on it, but their coaching staff is way better this year than last year. Yeah. The fact that they have the legends coming around too, it's like these guys on the court know everybody around them wants them to take it serious. But Maxey, a lot of people credit Cassell for getting Maxey to where he is today.
Really?
Just the way he coaches and how he gets on guys, and it's just...
Was Cassell on the Sixers staff? Did I not realize that? Okay, yeah. So that makes sense.
He was with Doc. Was it last year or the year before? We would have to look it up, but
Doc might have got let go the year before. I forget. But yeah, so that's interesting to hear. And it's nice to have a guy like Cassell on the bench for the Celts, bring back some of those 07 vibes.
Yep.
Maxey over-under on points per game, 21.5 points a game, which is pretty good, man. You know, he's 22 years old. If he hits that number, that's a solid points per game stat for a guy that age.
Over. I'm taking the over.
Yeah. I like it. Next team that comes up is the Cleveland Cavaliers, which they were sneaky good last year. So as being like the 5th best team in the East, at least preseason predictions. I believe it, man. Donovan Mitchell, career high last year, 28.3 points per game. Like, he's a freaking good player.
Yeah. What are they missing? What do you think takes them to the next level? Like, they are scrappy. They're like Nick Scrappy, in my opinion.
So they have Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. It's outside of Mitchell, who's been in the league for a few years and he's been a high performer. Like, those guys probably just need to grow up a little bit. You know what I mean? They're paying their dues. You know, reminds me of like early Tatum Brown, where like they were good. You knew they were going to be good, but they were still just learning. And maybe 4 or 5 years from now, you look back and they're still a solid team. But for me, I think it seems like it's a time thing with them. You know, Evan Mobley's very good too. But yeah, I felt bad for Cleveland after LeBron left that second time. I was like, man, they're going to suck forever. Yeah. You know, and to see them being relevant, yeah, I'm happy for them. Probably a tough place to be a sports fan.
It probably is. At least they're always competitive. You know, it runs back to the 80s. They're always putting a team that's always semi up there. But yeah, there's a couple of years after LeBron for it.
So Cleveland's a team that I could watch. I don't have League Pass for NBA. I probably should get it, but that's a team that I would watch if they were on. I actually might get League Pass. Do you have League Pass?
I don't, but we have Hulu now, and it seems like I'm going to get more game options.
Yeah. I feel like I want to watch more NBA. So, all right, next team, Miami Heat. They have them as the 6th best team. What do you think about the Heat? Like, what thoughts on the Heat?
A year older. Yeah. They lost Vincent. They lost
Strauss.
That
freaking guy.
Dude, really scrappy, those two.
So annoying. Those guys were so freaking annoying in the playoffs. It was like worst case scenario for us, best case scenario for them. You know, playing out of their ass, probably playing over their head.
Duncan played very well against us. And that's in my Pritchard sort of thought process. It's like you get a guy like Pritchard on the court, give him the liberty to shoot, and all of a sudden he's like 3 for 5 in like 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's what every player on the Heat was last year, and they lost 2 of those guys. Lowry's a year older. Butler's showing up with a weird haircut, so we'll take a couple. We'll take
Jimmy?
I don't know, man. What do you think? I mean, you nailed that prediction last year.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I thought that they're a tough team. I don't know that they're going to be. I wouldn't pick them to be back this year. They obviously still have Jimmy. He's freaking incredible in the playoffs. Bam Adebayo, and then Tyler Hero is probably their third best player who didn't even play through that run last year. I don't know
Yeah.
what he's going to give you. I just feel like they might have missed their window over those past couple years, and they probably got a little bit lucky the past couple years. Peaked at the right time.
Yep.
I mean, we could be talking about this end of the season, doing a playoff preview pod, and they're looking a lot better. But I'm not super worried about them. Also, bad vibes for them not getting Dame, considering they thought they were going to get Damian Lillard. So that didn't quite work out for him. I don't know that the whole season even works out for him.
Pat Riley, 80s Lakers, early 90s Knicks. Then he goes to the Heat. Pat Riley has had one of the most illustrious careers as a teacher of the game, coach, and as an executive. And then naturally, he lands LeBron. Then he naturally lands Chris Bosh. Like, I have a little bit of like, oh man, Pat. You have to appreciate him though. It was nice for me to see him take an L on the Dame thing though. Like
Yeah.
that's old Celtics Bedard speaking, bitter that he got LeBron. Bedard speaking, and LeBron kicked the Celtics ass for a couple years when KG was aging. So you know what, Pat, piss off, dude. You lost.
Screw you, Pat.
Yeah.
You know what? Pat's probably really good at recruiting guys, but he's also recruiting them to Miami too. So that's kind of doing the work for him a little bit to some degree. I don't know. So maybe he gets a little bit too much credit for his recruiting skills because, dude, who doesn't want to live in Miami, especially as an NBA player? Are you freaking kidding me?
Well, it's crazy. Like, Tangway's always reprimanding me when it comes to a Miami thought. He's like, that's young athlete, young rich athlete, young single rich athlete in Miami, South Beach. Like, what are you're like overlooking the fact that somebody goes to Miami over Boston? Like, it's easy.
And then you throw in no state taxes in Florida, and it's just like, dude, what are we even doing here? I think that those teams are like head and shoulders above the rest as far as like best teams in the East. Like as I'm like going through my list of teams, the next thing that comes up, New Orleans is a team in the West, right? The
Yes.
West. Am I freaking idiot? Okay, yeah. So like the next team that comes up is the Atlanta Hawks, who were a little frisky last year in the playoffs for us. But I'm not like especially scared of Trae Young. Their next best guy is DeJounte Murray, and then they have Clint Capella, who's not a guy that I'm scared of at all.
Clint Capella, I always was hoping that Rob would morph into a Clint Capella.
Mm-hmm.
And Rob was there on occasion, but again, injuries with Rob. But yeah, that team, scrappy guards, guys that can shoot. Murray can score. The big is decent, but I mean, they're short talent. They're just,
Trae Young is a good offensive player, but he's a very bad defensive player. Like probably the worst defensive player in the league, or one of those guys that gets thrown around the conversation of worst defenders in the NBA. So yeah, he can shoot from deep, but you need to have some defense in this league. So I don't know. I don't think of them as like a real contender, but they'll probably be a team that gets into the playoffs like last year as 7-8 seed or in a play-in seed, along with. Oh, go ahead.
Now I was going to ask you, like, random question about the Luka Atlanta Dallas draft day trade. That's a bad move by Atlanta, right?
What are they thinking?
Like, I don't even know what they were thinking.
It's not like it wasn't known. Didn't people even know then? Like Luka was a significantly better player than Trae Young. Not that Trae Young's bad. He's an NBA player. He's a good scorer. He's a great shooter and good dribbler. But Luka was one of those like generational type talents that people knew in the moment. I don't even know why they made the trade. Doesn't make any sense.
I don't know that I've ever read anything that says, here's why they did it.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's the Kobe Bryant to the Celtics, Laka going to the Celtics. Like, the only reason why we took Antoine that year was we were on the sort of brink of being a decent team, and like the management was like, all right, we'd rather go with this Kentucky All-American forward to pair him with Pierce instead of this high schooler named Kobe Bryant. Horrible move, by the way, but it's like, why?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, those two will be linked forever. Their careers. It'll always be a thing. When you think about Trae Young, you'll think about Luka. Maybe not necessarily the other way around, but Luka's had a better career, I think, up to this point. But Trae's a nice player, but he's just not as good as Luka. I don't want to go through every single team, but like get teams like the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton's good. They're enough. That's not like a great team. Miles Turner, Buddy Hield. They're just kind of like on the fringe playing game type team.
Who's the kid that the Celtics traded to get Brogdon? Neesmith. Neesmith just got paid. Shout out to Neesmith.
Did he? Really good for him, man. Yeah. Love a little Celtics alumni getting paid.
Yep, $30 million. Thank you very much.
Next team beyond that's the Nets. They have Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, just whatever. Like they're not a real team.
Hey, you know what needs to be said is that Kyrie and Durant are assholes, in my opinion.
No, it's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
So, well, okay, so you and I own an NBA team. You and I are billionaires, whatever, but you know, we love basketball. And two guys tell us they're coming. They tell us, and we have to write the check. So obviously we're going to write the check.
Of course.
And then 5 minutes later, you didn't get the first year out of Durant because of his knee. Kyrie shows up half the time that first year. I don't know. That whole situation, the Nets to me, well, first of all, if you're a Nets fan, why? Right?
Yeah,
why?
It's like being a Clippers fan. It's weird.
You live in Brooklyn and you pretend to be a Nets fan. But I don't know. It's such a good – I don't know why I'm going off on this, but like that is a good area to have a good basketball team, and just nothing goes right for those guys.
Yeah, they seem like one of those cursed franchises. So beyond that, we get the Bulls. My boy Josh Longstaff holding things down over there. Yeah, they're just a team they might not even make the playoffs, or unfortunately get into the playoff game. They got Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Vucevic. I don't know. They're not very competitive, unfortunately.
Yeah, but again, though, like if you look at them and you look at the Knicks and you look at the talent, you're just like, okay, what's different there?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I look at
LaVine is a scorer. I think he was hurt a lot. Like that guy scores the basketball. He's a good player.
Ball's hurt again, I guess. Evidently, he's
the ball. I think they fixed his knee, but I think he has to sit out this year again. But I saw something like Ball's only like 24 years old or something. Like he's really young. Who's the guy for the Trailblazers though? He reminds me of him. I think it was Brandon Roy was his name.
Yeah.
The guy was really good, man. Like Lonzo seems like he's a good player. His dad was such a douche when he came out of college that I was very turned off about him being a good player. But like that guy's kind of fallen in the background, and I'd like to see Lonzo Ball get like a real shot to play maybe next year. But he's still young, so keep that in mind.
Something interesting is that tied into that. So his dad chirped so much, it's super obvious that he's going to the Lakers at 1.
At 2.
At 2. I don't know. It allowed Tatum to fall in our lap perfectly. Mm-hmm. You know, we traded away the first, got the third, got the additional draft pick. You know,
it was incredible.
The Kings ended up being a little better than they normally was, but that could have been a Tatum plus lottery pick. You got the guy you wanted, and it was probably because Ball's dad wouldn't shut his mouth.
Yeah. It's incredible that the Lakers were so locked into grabbing Lonzo Ball back then. It was just like, that's what was happening. Like, I cannot believe they didn't take Tatum. I can't believe the Sixers traded for us to take Fultz. I mean, it's actually mind-blowing the way that whole thing worked out for us. We're very lucky in that sense.
Well, we were lucky, but the thing is, Randy, we have inherited that Kings pick that doesn't end up getting talked about because for the first time in 10 years, the Kings actually avoided the lottery. We could have had Tatum and a fucking lottery pick, and, you know, that kind of bums me out. That didn't work out, but still we got Tatum. Anyhow.
We still got lucky. I don't want to spend any more time on teams in the East. I think we're looking at the Hornets, Pistons, maybe all teams. Yeah, Toronto that just are not very good. So I'm gonna ask you this question. I already know the answer, but like when you look at the East, who do you think comes out of the East?
Celtics.
Fairly, like this is it, dude. Right? Like
it's a 2-year window that needs to happen. It really needs to happen.
It all hinges on health, as it does for every single team that we just went over, or most of them, at least the top 5 or 6 of them. But if they are healthy, dude, I don't know who beats us in a 7-game series in the playoffs, at least to get to the finals. So your pick coming out of the East, Celts. -2. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the West. From cranking right along. So team that is favorite out of the West right now, considered the best team in the league, defending champs, Denver Nuggets. We're recording this the day after the opening night where they beat the Lakers last night. So, who a lot of people think is like the next best team, and they beat them pretty handily. So, thoughts on Denver going into the season as defending champs?
I think it's interesting that your best player doesn't need to be the most athletic, doesn't need to be the most outspoken, even the most vocal. It's really fun watching this guy. It's a facsimile of Larry Bird. He's got a bigger hitch than Bird did in his shot. He just makes everything go. He's a phenomenal passer. He's a good defender. He's a great rebounder. Then you just have a really good point guard that's an alpha that just wants to eat your lunch every day.
Monari's good, dude.
Dude, really good. Porter, the wing players, Aaron Gordon. I mean, they just go so well together. It reminds me of the way that the Warriors were put together and still are put together, but now they're aging. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I just think they're a freaking amazing team. And what you're getting out of guys like Aaron Gordon and Porter Jr., like that stuff works because a guy like Joker. He's there's no one like him, and he's not a sexy pick as the best player. And I think that's why the general public hasn't really connected with him. I know that I gained some appreciation of him watching him in the playoffs last year in the finals, but I don't know that his game ever breaks through with the public, like guys like Tatum or Brown or something, Giannis or Dame or guys like that score the basketball in a flashy way. He's just a freaking good player, man. And they're a good team. So
random thought is that everything you just said about Joker is what I've been wanting out of. I say I want it out of Brown, but that's not realistic. That's what I've wanted out of Tatum. I don't think that's quite there yet. That's why I'm excited Holiday's on the team, because you actually have a guy that does that. Granted, he's he's not a big, but the Celtics actually have a guy that's a facilitator, like a Joker. I think that is the major thing with a really good team, is if you have a guy that can just look over the landscape and say, you know what? That wooded piece of land right there actually has some water behind it. Granted, it's 200 feet, but man, that is a $1 million lot if you actually have the brains to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to be good, man. They will continue to be good. Prime Joker right now, their over under for wins is 51.5. So I'd probably take the over on that, to be honest with you.
Well, but also, Randy, though, one thing we haven't said is the East, Milwaukee and Boston, unless there's a major trade, the East is pretty easy this year. That 51 is low because the West is stacked.
Yeah, the next couple teams on the list are those next three teams I think are very good teams. So who do you think the next best team in the West is?
The Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. Our boy Matt Ishbia, his team, his Phoenix Suns. UWM.
UW Bedard's jealous because this guy is my age and he's a billionaire. He owns a basketball team. I am on a podcast with you. I do not own a basketball team.
And the owner is in the mortgage business too. That's the thing. UWM is a mortgage company that he owns. That freaking guy's a billionaire. Bought the Suns, living the dream. So their team obviously is Durant, Devin Booker, who's a sneaky MVP pick for some people, and then you have a guy like Bradley Beal, who they just added, who's a long time with the Wizards. Those are three legit scorers. That's a good team, dude. They gave away what's his name, DeAndre Ayton, who was one of their big young guys. But dude, when you have those three dudes on the team with the ball, it's a tough team.
What's the Euros name? That's the big that came over from Portland. He's doesn't need the ball, but when he does, he can do things in the post. It's those little things outside of the big threes on these teams where you need those type of players to be who they are. So I like their big. Durant, though, you got to worry a little bit about injury with him.
A little bit. A lot of it, dude. How old's Durant now?
I'm going to guess 36 or 7.
Yeah, so dude, you forget he's been doing it for a long time. He's old. His body's broken down a lot.
Let me look this up while you're talking. Go for it.
I mean, his freaking legs are like little toothpicks, man. I don't know. If he can stay healthy, I'll be surprised. I don't know how many games he's missed over the past few years, but it's been significant time. So the Suns are the big if team on the injury front to me. Honestly, when we get to the Lakers too, they're kind of that way as well. But if they can stay healthy, dude, Durant's freaking all-time great, man. He's probably a top, I don't know, what would you say Durant is? Top 15 player ever in the NBA?
He has to be one of the greatest scorers ever. Hey, something really positive for them. They have the great Bowl.
Oh, really?
Yes. Durant just turned 35.
Okay, so not that bad, but definitely old, man. 35. People play in the NBA at 35 and past 35 nowadays, but 35 is historically old for an NBA player.
Yep.
So, but Devin Booker's in his prime, dude. He's a real good player. So I think he's probably like the most important piece. You know, Durant's probably the best player, but if you can get some real scoring out of Booker the way he can, what did he put up, an 80-point game a couple years ago?
Yeah,
he can score the basketball.
I think he put a 79 wing piece with sweet chili Thai on it in Boston.
I forgot that.
Yeah, it was in Boston. Shout out to the great Kendrick Perkins there. I just tried to mimic his like little food comparisons. I don't know how he did.
I like it. I like the sweet chili Thai sauce.
Oh man, sweet chili Thai on anything.
So, all right, we'll see about the Suns. Obviously, a good number 2 team to challenge the Nuggets. I actually picked the Suns to go to the finals last year. Didn't quite work out. The next best team, though, that everyone's looking at is the Lakers. So, what are your thoughts on the Lakers?
Interesting. I watched the majority of that game last night. They have a bunch of good parts. They have a older leader. I'm not going to critique him negatively because the body of work is just amazing. But like, I watched the big last night for them, and it was just like he wasn't getting the ball a lot, and it was the ball was in LeBron's hands a lot, and I just started thinking about, all right, how is this constructed? And it's just one of those teams where it might be time for LeBron to touch the ball a little less in different areas so the other guys can do what they do. Does that make sense?
It does. And with that said, I'm interested to see like the role that Austin Reeves plays on the team. Yeah. He obviously kind of came alive the second half of the last season to the playoffs. They re-signed him to a really like friendly contract, and he's probably going to have to take a bigger role on because LeBron kind of goes into cruise control mode in games. Like I feel like LeBron knows what he's going to do minute by minute. Like the first 5 minutes of the game, I'm going to like kind of chill out. The next 5 minutes, I'm going to push it. You know, coming out of the second quarter, I'm going to do this. Like, I think he's just trying to get through the game and just try to get through the regular season. So if you can have a guy like Reeves pick up the slack on the offensive side, I think it'll make a huge difference. I'm not the biggest Anthony Davis fan. I don't know what it is about that dude. He's very tall. He has the potential to be an MVP type player, but he's always hurt. Sometimes he doesn't try that hard. It's almost like their season hinges on him, though, at the same time, because he's like such a big piece of the team.
Well, you said sometimes. Like, I've noticed innumerable times watching that kid play basketball where I'm like, does he care right now? It's super strange.
Because he was born with this body, you know, and these skills. It's like if you just had a little bit more effort, a little bit more care, maybe something like what Embiid has, he could be such a great player. So if he can stay healthy, though, and if LeBron can stay healthy, which again is a big if, we talk about Durant, but like LeBron's had a few sneaky injury things over the past couple of years too. But everyone seems to like that team. Everyone seems to think they had a good off season with re-signing Reeves, and people had them potentially making the finals last year. They lost in the Western Conference Championship, so like they were right there. They actually got smoked by the Nuggets, but they're a good team. Who do you think's next? I'll tell you. It's the Golden State Warriors.
Not anymore. That's what I think.
That's interesting.
Yep. Good team, good players. It's the aging guard. They'll be there. You hope they're not going to be injured. I don't see it anymore. How about you?
Well, I'm not quite as negative on them. I think Steph Curry's still amazing. Like, still love Steph Curry, man. I'm freaking Steph Curry guy till the day I die. I still think he has the potential to be a top 5 player, scorer, leader, all that stuff. It's going to be what the other guys do that really kind of drives things. Clay is not the same Clay that he used to be, and I think we just have to accept that. One thing you forget about last year is Andrew Wiggins, who kind of got them to that finals run the year before. Missed a lot of last year over some weird situation. I actually don't even know exactly what happened. I don't think anyone knows what happened, right?
Yeah, so, personal relationship-wise, it seemed like he got pretty buzzsawed.
Yeah, weird. But so he missed a lot. And if he can come back and be Andrew Wiggins from a couple years ago, he could be that solid number 2. Never been a big Draymond guy, but that dude is kind of electric. He definitely gets people going. And I think losing Jordan Poole, or removing Jordan Poole, I should say, that whole thing kind of had carried over the team for as long as they were together after it happened. So it's like you remove him from the picture, maybe that improves things. And then lastly, I think Chris Paul could be a good addition to the team.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, I don't know. He's not quite like Kyle Lowry to the point that he has no more gas left in the tank. We'll see how the season plays out. But Chris Paul does have something to bring to the table. Hopefully he can do it through the course of the regular season into the playoffs. It's a long season, but I think he's a good addition. The only thing when I look at those guys is they just don't have a lot of size. Just not a lot of big guys. When you're competing against teams like the Nuggets, teams like the Lakers, like you don't have the bodies to cover their big guys.
Yep. You know what? Everything goes right. It's an amazing run. And wow, we talk about it. Holy cow, they're in there again. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Next team, Memphis Grizzlies. Ja Morant's going to miss 25 games. I think his suspension is 25 games. That leaves him with Jaren Jackson Jr., Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane. Grizzlies have been frisky the past couple of years, and I do want them to succeed because of Marcus Smart. I just think when you take Ja Morant out of the picture for 25 games and what they have left over, I don't think of them as being very good, but I will hope for the best for our boy Marcus Smart.
It might end up being a gap year. Like the Spurs once had a gap year and they got lucky and they drafted David Robinson. They might actually end up being bad because what happens those 25 games when he comes back? Is he going to be an idiot again? Who knows?
Yeah. So it's interesting that they have them ahead of the next team, which are the Clippers, because Paul George, Kawhi, and Russell Westbrook are all healthy going to the year, and especially Kawhi. Like that's the guy you never quite know where you stand when it comes to his health. But he said it himself. He's healthy coming into this year for the first time in a while. So you have those three guys. Russell Westbrook seemed to find his place out in LA on that version of LA. I would think that they'd be better than Memphis.
Man, I'm actually looking up the age of some of these guys. Don't they? It feels like they've been around forever. It feels like you expected more out of them forever. And it's just like George is always getting injured. Kawhi's always getting injured. It's like Russell's like in this phase of his career where it's like, okay, maybe he'll be good on this team. But it's been 4 years now since he averaged the triple-double with the Washington Wizards, by the way. He did average the triple-double with the Washington Wizards. Yeah. I don't know. It's like one of those things. It's not for me anymore. I'm like sick of rooting for a Kawhi to actually play like 50 games and actually show the Clippers that they're spending money for a good reason.
Yeah, he's a weird guy. It's like he has contempt for his celebrity status and the fact that people expect him to play basketball on a semi-regular basis when he's getting paid as much money as he is. I mean, he's a good player. I mean, there was times when he was a great player and people thought he was one of the top handful of players in the whole league, and he's definitely still up there, but not the same. I put them in the same category as the Brooklyn Nets. They're just
whatever.
Nothing goes right for them. I mean, they probably have a little bit more upside than the Nets, or a lot more upside than the Nets, but don't have like a ton of good feelings for them. Next team, Sacramento Kings. Could be fun. That's Sabonis, Fox, Harrison Barnes. They were good last year.
It's a fun team. It's in that area again of like the Isaiah Thomas type Celtics. I don't want to keep using that analogy, but it's like a bunch of really good parts, not something that's in the Tatum area or the Giannis area, like the unicorn area. But it's like they're just really good basketball players playing really good basketball, and the coach is pretty good too.
Yeah, totally. Next team, Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm actually really interested in this team in particular, not just because they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, freaking tough name to say. He's a top 10 player at this point. Guy scores the basket, but I'm most interested for Chet Holmgren, who's coming off of an injury last year where he missed the whole season, where he's a very highly regarded rookie, and now he's coming in kind of like a Blake Griffin scenario when he came into the league, where he missed the first season, came in second year, and then won like rookie of the year in that second year. So when you add those pieces to what they have is Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, it's a fun young team. I'm looking forward to seeing how they play.
Yep, same here. Good way to break that down. I think that's perfect.
There's actually good money on Chet to win rookie of the year over our boy Wemby, the alien. He's plus 275. I don't know what Wembanyama's odds are to win rookie of the year, but plus 275 is not that high when you have a guy like Wembanyama where it's like almost seems like it would be a shoe-in for him to win it. People think Holmgren can win if he's only plus 275. Maybe if he was like plus 700 or something like that, he'd be a long shot. But plus 75 means people take him seriously.
Wembanyama.
Wow. I don't want to get to the Spurs just yet. A couple more teams. Okay. Minnesota Timberwolves. Do they move the needle for you? Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley. That doesn't sound that bad, but like they're just. Yeah.
I like that team constructed better than I like the Clippers. I just gave the Kings a compliment. I like them better than the Kings.
Mhm.
Like, I think it was a really stupid move to spend the capital that they did for Rudy. That's insanely stupid. But like Anthony Edwards, to me, I think this is the year where you start seeing that kid where you're like, holy shit.
Mhm.
And if
Yeah,
and if
he's one of those guys. But the Rudy thing, dude, like they're Minnesota, like it's like you almost have to spend money on somebody. So it's like you might
yeah,
as well just do it on a guy that's a former defensive player of the year. It's easy to say that I wouldn't have done it, but I don't know. Like they're just not a desirable market, so maybe they're just trying to make it happen. So in that sense, I kind of respect it and get it, but it's definitely not working out.
if you're a fan of their team or if you watch basketball and you're just picking up a game and watching them, if you're noticing Anthony's got the ball and everybody's working everything around him, they're going to have a good season. But if they're pounding the ball into Karl Anthony Towns and waiting for Rudy to get a couple opportunities for him to back himself into the post, it's going to be a waste of time. Edwards needs the ball all the time, every play.
He's a stud. Caesars actually has the over-under at 46.5 wins, which is pretty high when you consider what I said it was for the Nuggets. But I mean, someone's got to win these games, so that's why it's an interesting thing. I don't know that I take the over, but I think it's probably a pretty good number that they set it at. Next up, New Orleans Pelicans. What's your first thought when it comes to New Orleans?
A lot of talent. Too bad one of their best players is always hurt. Ingram is always hurt. Ingram's got a really good game, by the way. I wish he would just show some consistency. I like McCollum's game. I think that complements two really good scorers like those two guys. Yeah, it's like
it's if Zion can stay on the court, man,
yeah,
they could be a fun team to watch. Ingram's awesome, dude.
yep,
And McCollum's great too. I mean, they're not first team All NBA guys. They're probably not even All NBA guys in general, but they're very good players. And Williamson just seems like a freaking bum, dude. I was so pumped when that guy came out of college. I just had a ton of high hopes for him, and just not that good. He played 29 games last year.
that's good.
Yeah. And when he played those 29 games, they were on pace to win 48 games, which is respectable. So it's like he just needs to stay on the court. I haven't heard that he's not on track to play. I guess I just don't know. I hadn't paid attention to the Pelicans that much.
But there's some depth here as we continue to go down this list.
Yeah. Well, honestly, the next team too is Dallas Mavericks with Luka, who we already spent a good amount of time talking about, who's a top 5 player in the NBA. You got Kyrie, fuck you, Kyrie, and Grant Williams.
Yeah, fuck off, Kyrie. Sorry.
I like Luka, and I don't hate the Mavericks. I have nothing against them. Like the only thing is, I just don't love Kyrie, so it's like I don't want them to win it all. They probably need. If Grant Williams is their third best player, like they don't have like a notable big. Luka's a good player. Kyrie, when he plays, is electric, but the way they're constructed now, I don't think they have the team to compete with those other 5 or 6 teams you've already said in the West.
It's too bad because they're going to be mired in just above or slightly below 500 ball as that team's constructed, and you're just wasting awesome deep playoff runs of a really good basketball player.
Well, what's weird is they folded their tent last year at the end of the regular season. I think they didn't play their guys the last handful of games when it meant that they might be able to get into a playoff game, and they basically accepted their lottery status and didn't get like notably good pick or player or anything like that. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I thought that was a weird move to just kind of throw in the towel like that. So whatever about them.
Yep.
Beyond that, we're talking Jazz, who don't have anyone particularly good. Markkanen's there, probably their best player. Jordan Clarkson's there. Colin Sexton's there. Next team after that, Spurs, which will be kind of a must-see team in general just because of Wembanyama, right? Like the he's a freak. I'm seeing all these pictures of him blocking shots from a mile away and just moving pretty quickly with his long reach.
Yep.
I hope the kid can stay healthy because a body like that just isn't meant to compete in basketball for the long term.
He's light though, so it makes me think that he's going to be able to pull it off, kind of like Durant, but he's like a step above athletically than Durant. You were talking about the rookie of the year. In my mind, it's the alien. Like Chet's going to have a really good year, but this kid, if he stays healthy.
I was trying to find his odds they got to be like plus like 125 or something like that. But I was surprised that Chet was even in the plus 275 conversation. Other teams beyond that, Houston with Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, no thanks. Trailblazers is going to have a tough time with DeAndre Ayton being their best player and Rob Williams. And that's everyone, dude.
So let's do this.
So who do you have coming out of the West, man?
I'm going to say Denver. If it's not Denver, it's Phoenix because they stayed healthy.
So I like it. The health part's going to be a big thing for all of that. And that's why I am going to take the Lakers if they stay healthy. Celtics-Lakers finals.
Wow.
Bring me back to 07, 09. Add it to the long history that we have playing each other. Could be a ton of fun in one of LeBron's last years.
You saw one of my biggest meltdowns, by the way, over the Lakers.
Me, you, Tangway, Game 7, 09 finals, my bonus room. Celtics were up, 14 in the fourth?
Yep.
Blew it.
Yeah.
You left with like 3 minutes left, pissed. Me and Tay finished off the game.
And the thing is like, after all these years of watching so many games and you watch momentum shifts, I knew what was happening and I could not deal with it.
You did see it happening. You just knew it was going to happen. That lead was not safe. No. And they were chipping away at it and they won. And man, we
hits that 3-pointer and I just lace a sermon in Randy's bonus room of F-bombs. And it was garbage that my kid shouldn't hear. Randy's kids shouldn't have heard. Like, actually, you didn't have kids at that point, but...
Nope, I did not.
Our was probably in the other room wondering what the hell's wrong with that arm.
Our neighbors were wondering if everything was okay. But yeah, dude, that would... so to add another Lakers-Celtics matchup, I think it'd be fun, man. And Celtics definitely... I'm all the way there with the Celtics. A lot of things could happen and break a certain way out in the West. Lakers stay healthy. I think they have just as good a chance as anyone.
So then Celtics.
Favorites in the West, or just like some numbers. Nuggets are plus 245 to go. Golden State's actually plus 600, believe that or not. Lakers plus 700. So gives you a little bit of a sense of what people are thinking. Memphis is plus 1,200.
I will say this overall, it's going to be a fun year of basketball outside the Celtics. There's a lot of talent in the league. The East is a little weak sauce from the middle bottom, but it's going to be fun to watch games this year. Am I into your Lakers pick? I'm not against it, but I think a lot of things need to happen.
Yeah.
And I actually think the thing that needs to happen is a little less LeBron. And it's funny to say that because LeBron is LeBron and you need LeBron to get there. But it just seems like if you can get Davis carrying more of that load and those side players doing a little bit more, I think that's better for LeBron throughout the course of the season. I don't know. We'll see.
I agree with you. Couple odds in the East, just to get back to that, we didn't talk about it at the time, but Milwaukee's plus 160 to win the Eastern Conference. Celtics are plus 175, so pretty close. Miami's a long shot at plus 1,200. Sixers plus 800. So those are the teams. So actually, to win the overall finals, Celtics are the favorite at plus 380, which is odd. Suns plus 600. So people like the Celts, no doubt about that. Let's see.
Awesome.
Anything else strike me? Let's see here. Tatum is plus 750 to lead the league in scoring, which I could see that. Could Tatum lead the league in scoring?
Yep. Yeah, easily. I think the thing that's going to be the difference for Tatum this year is he's going to play a little bit more with his back to the basket. That was my maxi. That's where I was going to parlay my maxi thing with Sam Cassell. Apparently, Sam Cassell is in Tatum's ear nonstop about getting his ass in the post. Mm-hmm. Which for me means more foul shots, which for me means more energy late in games. You're not doing that high post dribbling stuff, killing yourself. So I can see it happening.
Love it. I didn't even close the loop on our picks because I took Lakers Celtics. You took Denver Celtics. Are we both taking the Celtics to win the championship this year? I just kind of assumed that we were.
Number 18. Let's go.
Lock it up. Hey, while we're at it, is there a bigger joke than the Lakers trying to claim the Minnesota championships as like part of their championships?
So how do I answer that? It's like, of course that's a factor. Of course you're making it something. No, those are not LA championships. That was the
you
team
can't
from
factor
Minnesota.
those in and try to compete with the Celtics. It's ridiculous. So I don't know. I cringe every time I hear them talk about how many titles they have.
How about the Celtics buy the Washington Warriors team history before they went to Golden State, and we'll take a couple of those fucking championships. You know what? Fuck off with that stuff.
I love it. Who's going to win the MVP? That's the last thing I want to talk about. Who's going to win it?
Quick thoughts are, Randy, you go first.
You don't know. I like it. That's well played.
Thank you.
I am going. I'm such a homer. I'm going Tatum. He's stepping it up this year. It's going to be Giannis or Tatum. I picked Embiid last year because I thought that was the narrative. He had been close. Yep. One of the big guys. He was going to get his. Jokic got his. Giannis got his. And now it's Embiid's turn. He played obviously well enough to deserve it. But I kind of felt like the narrative took hold, like it was his turn. So he got his. I don't know that he ever gets an MVP again. Jokic, sure. I really think it's like a Giannis Tatum thing. Those are going to be the two best teams. It's probably a stretch to think a guy like Tatum can win it at this point. It does seem like the big guy, like the power forward, centers have been getting it over the past 4 or 5 years. But if the Celtics have the type of year that I think they can have and hope they have, then it means Tatum's having a big year and he's taking his game up to the next level. He's winning the MVP, scoring championship. So that's my pick.
JT for MVP.
It's the freaking best, man. I love it.
No. If he doesn't win it, it's the Greek.
Yeah.
And it's because the Greek just pimp smacked the league. But he's
good. He could win it every year. Like the years he hasn't won it the past few years, like he could have won it. And there was like Giannis fatigue, which happens in MVP voting. But we're past that now. Like if he plays like he has been, he could easily win it. He's freaking amazing. Unicorn, like one of a kind. But
we need our prediction to be right. We need JT to be the MVP. I'm sick of being wrong on this podcast. This is your Celtics. Lock it up.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I think that's a good way to end it, dude. That was fun, man. I'm fired up for the season. Fired up to get this podcast out. Go Celtics. Anything else you want to add?
Okay, Celtics are playing tonight. They're playing the Knicks. This pod is going to drop after the game. Randy Forcier over under 36.5 Jason Tatum points tonight in the Garden. Does he have an MJ moment opening night? F off league, Celtics year.
So I can't say no to that. So I'm going to have to say yes. But let's go. Big night for JT, starting off the season, showing everyone what the Celtics have. Let's go.
All right. Good pod, bud.
All right. Thanks, bud. Talk to you soon.